least he's taking accountability for what he's saying though. Yeah, this is a terrible look, but with the context, is it as bad as the narrative that they are pushing on Twitter? That's what I'm saying. It's kind of a hard question to answer because like he wasn't necessarily disrespecting black folk, like I said, but at the same time he was. At the same time he's saying these words knowing the weight that's behind it, but it's just excusing it as, oh, I was reading.
Notice the white people, oh, it's a no-no word. That's, you know, it's a big bad no-no word that shouldn't be a big deal. And then you have black people are saying this is a big deal. This word carries a lot of weight, and it all comes down to the fact that you're white and they're black. You can't relate. You benefit from white supremacy. You benefit from white privilege. That's a reality. We don't. And then of course, you got the blacks who are coons and white apologists, and that's a thing as well. All right, so let's take a look at the whole Anthony Fantano situation. What an interesting thing that has unfolded. And I'm not going to go the simple route of just saying, he's bad, he's good, he used to be bad, he's good now, he was always bad, he's still bad. That's the simplistic point of view. I'm actually more interested in the more global conversation that is happening around this situation and the different positions that people are taking, and how the position that they are taking actually has nothing at all to do with Anthony, the things that he has said, but rather Anthony serves as a mirror for people to reveal who they are through this situation, or at least in the context of their individual relationship with race and conversations around race and racism. So we're just going to go to various YouTube channels that are talking about this situation. So let's dive in. To start off this video, let's actually take a look at the clip. So on Twitter, there is this viral clip that was posted by Academics TV. Now let's take a look at the beginning of this clip, because I think the worst shit is in the beginning.
It'll mean the end of my YouTube career. For
the whole Alex is a good thing.
Real nibbas do stuff.
Who infamously called Ian a nigger faggot. Harvey Weinstein. What's your opinion on Mike Dean producing the new album? I'm not even a really big nigger guy. So Jigglypuff is a social justice meme featuring a loud, obnoxious pig of a human being who is screaming her brains out at the New Hampshire college date of Milo Yiannopoulos' Dangerous Tour. Another funny slew of social justice memes come about.
Okay, and it's just more of this. Now, what can you take away from these clips? You can make the argument from these clips. There's enough room to make the argument that either on one extreme end, Fantano was a closeted racist, veiled in, and this is him toning it down for social media shit in an era where speaking like this made you be considered an edgelord. Right? You could talk like this, maybe you're racist, maybe you're just edgy and not a racist. But behind closed doors, Anthony is actually a full-blown racist, white supremacist, hates black people with a passion. The thought of, you know, interbreeding with black people he thinks is disgusting. That's one extreme. And do I believe that's who Anthony was even in this phase of his life? No, I don't. But there's enough room to possibly make that argument, sure. To the other extreme end, which is Anthony at this point in time and at this phase of his life was immature. He was immature and lacked understanding and empathy for these various groups of people that he is speaking about in a way that you can consider hurtful or harmful to these groups of people. And I think that's something that many of us, including myself, has been guilty of throughout our lives, right? Throughout time. It just is what it is. The thing is, most of us just aren't on camera doing it and putting it on YouTube. And so I think Anthony is probably closer to that end of the spectrum than the other end of the spectrum. You know, and don't get it twisted though. It is white supremacy that allows for that cultivates that level of ignorance, lack of empathy in people, especially white people, why this ever was a thing or is a thing. And so, okay, so that's that. But I think all of that, what I just said, that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is exploring the different takes that people have on this situation. And we're going to be reading comment sections. We're going to be watching videos. Here, first, let's start with the big boys. Let's start with the more popular creators. Now, you're going to see a pattern here. You're going to see all the white people essentially taking one position, more or less, and all the black people taking another position. I think that's interesting. Let's start with Asmongold TV, an incredibly popular creator, white, conservative, MAGA Republican kind of guy. Okay, let's go.
Fine.
So here's his video. This is embarrassing, and he is talking about Fantano. Let's go.
Anthony Fantano inward. Anthony Fantano racist. Does that sound like a good thing to do? Just 24 hours, Anthony Fantano has been exposed laughing at Trayvon Martin's death. Yeah, with his alt-right buddies caught saying the N-word with the hard R on video and deleting posts from last night where he hinted that Drake was a pedophile. This is what happens when white men pretend to be part of the culture just to grift off of it, and y'all let him sit at the table this long, shaking my head. Wow. Wow. So he makes a video and he says, taking accountability.
Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and in case you haven't noticed, I'm getting torn apart on Twitter, which is nothing new.
You deserve it. You've been participating in online hate mobs against people, virtue signaling on everybody on Twitter. You've done this to me multiple times, and now it's happening to you. And you're never going to get people that are going to dislike you to ever forget about this. There's never going to be a moment where you're going to be able to move past this. Everybody is always going to think of you as a fake fuck. It doesn't matter what you're going to say in this video. You already look like a clown, and there's nothing that you can do about it.
Wow, now that was vicious, right? What a spell he just tried to cast on Anthony right there, saying that, you know, essentially his career is over and no one will ever move past this, implying that everything that Anthony has said within recent history, speaking against racism, sexism, homophobia, and the various other things that guys like Asmongold hates. He hates people speaking against these things. And so do, you know, they call it being a victim and all that, even though they cry just as much as everybody else. They just cry about different things. They cry about, you know, white erasure. They cry about immigrants. They cry about fucking shit, people calling them out for being racist and all these things. They're everybody is crying. You're crying, I'm crying, everyone's crying. And really, we label it crying when we don't agree with the grievance. It's not crying when you're affected. When you're affected, you're just articulating a very real thing that you think is fucked up, that is either affecting you or your community. But when it's something that you don't care about or even disagree with, then it's crying and you're being a victim. But everybody does it. That's first and foremost. That's what Asmongold does for a living, is cry on the internet. And that's what people would say that anybody does who gives their opinion about something that other people don't like. I don't think Asmon is a crier. I don't think anybody is crying. I think people care about different shit. And they're just voicing those things that they think are important to them. Right? So, but okay. But what he wants to make the argument and say is that Anthony has been lying this entire time. It's been an entire grift. He doesn't actually think racism is bad. He doesn't actually think sexism is bad. Homophobia is bad. All of these things are bad. He's just grifting, pretending that he does. And the evidence is that we can now find clips from 10 years ago and older where he was speaking in a way that contradicts his current position. So what Asmon wants to do, and what all the people who want to hate Fantano for whatever reason want to do, is make the argument that it is impossible that he has grown. It is impossible that he has changed his mind. It is impossible that he has matured as a person. That's essentially what they want to make the argument. Everybody is the exact same person perpetually from when they were a teenager or in their 20s or et cetera, et cetera. And if you ever voice a different opinion than one you previously held at some point in the past, you're grifting and you're lying. It's not possible that you changed your mind. Okay, we continue.
That's it. It's over.
For me personally,
well, let's hear the reason why he did it.
Reached a fever pitch that's making a lot of people concerned and angry, and even thinking I'm covertly a racist, bigoted.
Well, you're not covertly a racist, bigoted person. You were overtly a racist, bigoted person. Nobody said covert. What are you talking about? Laughing at Trayvon Martin and then saying the N-word with the hard R with all your friends. I mean, that sounds kind of racist. And again, if I did this, here's a good...
And that is racist. And I'm glad Asmongold is saying this, and that's why we're looking at Asmon's video first, because of Asmon's hatred for Fantano, he's actually saying something a little bit different than you're going to hear the other white creators who don't like this situation, what they have to say. They take a slightly different posture. Asmon is actually willing to surrender the idea that these are racist things to do, making fun of a young black person who was, unjustifiably murdered by somebody who eventually gets off scot-free, or at least did get off scot-free for a while. And I do think he got out. Zimmerman was released from prison after he murdered Trayvon Martin, right? Saying the hard R as a white man casually and unapologetically, it's not showing empathy to the reality of that word and its history and what that means for black people. Like, you being a black person and a fan of you as a white guy, hearing you say that word with no remorse or reservation, that does have the potential to, rub your black viewers the wrong way, to seem like, dang, like you just saying that word like it's nothing as a white guy. Something's off about that. Something ain't right about that. Now, of course, you're going to have a lot of black white apologists who are like, oh, well, me hearing a white guy say that doesn't bother me personally, and therefore all black people who do have a problem with it are thus tripping and are soft. No, what it is you're a white apologist, possibly a coon, and you rather score brownie points with white people who like to hear that you don't think it's a big deal than to empathize with black people who may be a little bit more sensitive to that thing. Maybe they've actually, more than likely, if you have that position, it's because you haven't experienced any real, overt and harmful examples of racism in your life, right? But there are black people who have. And so for that reason, they may be a little bit more sensitive to things like this. But because you're either a coon or at the very least a white apologist, you rather try and make the white people feel better by saying it's not a big deal than to empathize with your fellow black people. That's a you problem, right? So there's that aspect going on as well. But let's continue.
Question. If I got caught with this, do you think Anthony Fantano would be making tweets and talking shit about me? What do you think? Absolutely. Shouldn't have done it. shouldn't have done it.
Person. Now, these are the same sorts of allegations that I have fought against and won before, and I'm happy to do it again because I have nothing to hide and I know they're not true. I don't want to waste anyone's time, so let's just get straight into it. With Exhibit A, this clip right here, which has just been going absolutely viral, and here's my explanation for it. Early on in my YouTube career, I had some pretty lax views.
So Anthony essentially, I want to get back to Asmon talking. But Anthony essentially makes the argument that, hey, I was quoting somebody in this specific clip. Now, Anthony has other problematic clips, and all of them cannot be excused with I was quoting somebody. Right. But so let's go ahead and see what Asmon says here.
Like a few years, more or less a moral gray area. I extended this attitude.
It's not a moral gray area. It's an optics gray area. You don't care about this at all. That's why you were out there saying it back in the day. You don't give a shit about any of this. You're sitting around doing this, and the reason why is because it makes you look good. It never had anything to do with morals or ethics. It had everything to do with optics and people's perception.
And so what Asmon has just done is acknowledge that he believes that any and all efforts to speak against these various, things like racism, homophobia, Asmon doesn't care about these things. He thinks it's bullshit. He thinks racism isn't a problem in America. He thinks homophobia isn't a problem. He thinks sexism isn't a problem. He thinks, all of these various things are not problems for anybody. They don't need to be addressed. They don't need to be acknowledged. They don't need to be fixed in any way. Any white man that is of that position is grifting. And that's because Asmongold is a racist in of himself. He is. He's also saying, therefore, Anthony here, he's faking the funk. It's not possible that he has done what Asmon has not done, which is matured and grown past this position that he has and has now evolved. And so, yes, he also goes on to make the point. Let's take a look at the comments right here. The comment says, like always, top comment, the left eat their own. It happened to Ethan Klein, and it finally came for Anthony Fantano. And so essentially he's basically saying that, look, Anthony has been grifting, trying to appease the left, liberal, progressive pussies, and now they're the ones canceling Anthony. But that's not true. It might be true for some, but I think many people on the left who maybe appreciate Anthony's positions on anti-racism, for instance, are probably saying, hey, this is an older version of Anthony that we're seeing here. He has grown past that. No, in fact, I dare say the majority of people who are using this situation to hate on Anthony or to criticize Anthony, and it's so funny, I'm personally not a Anthony Fantano fan. I don't watch The Needle Drop. I don't really I've seen his content in the past. The main people that are coming against Anthony are people who hate Anthony, which no matter what camp they fall in. Are some of those people progressive with progressive views? Sure. But I think the majority of people are actually people like, Asmon. People who hate the fact that Anthony has, calls out racism, calls out these problematic worldviews, and are now they're the ones actually grifting and pretending as if they all of a sudden care about these things. Why? To add to the outrage that is going on. So I think they're probably the majority. Academics fans, Drake fans, anybody who has ever had a reason to hate Anthony Fantano, they are the ones I think that are the source of the majority of the outrage. I don't think, it's actually people who appreciate Anthony's positions here. They realize the clips are old. So let's go ahead and see. I'm sure some do. Some might be thinking he was faking the funk all along. And maybe there are people who are kind of a mix of both. People are like, okay, we're fucking with this anti-racism shit, but I don't really like you like that. And so now I have an opportunity to just hop on the idea that you were faking it so that I don't betray my progressive views while still now having justification to say fuck you. There's that as well. It's nuanced, it's complicated. But let's see another guy. This is so fucking pathetic. Now, I think this gives us an opportunity to see yet a slightly different way that a lot of white people or non-black people are handling this situation. A little bit different than Asmon. Let's go.
You saw the title of the video. You know what the hell this is about. Why I don't use the N-word. Okay? We're gonna go there. We're gonna get into that.
All right, guys, enough playing around. We need to talk about the N-word, and we need to talk about Mr. Anthony Fantano. So recently, this video of his went viral. Actually, quite a few went viral. Now, I made a few videos about Mr. Fantano, some defending him, some criticizing him. I watch his content from time to time, but here we are. Now, the video that went viral yesterday is this one right here. I'll play what I can because I don't want this video to be taken down or demonetized, but he's quoting what Ian, aka iDubbbz, used to say,
who infamously called Ian a faggot, and now he just kind of quotes that to death. That dude clearly had a few screws loose, but Ian really had no problem with putting him on blast to make him look ridiculous, which...
Yes, he's quoting the great almighty Mr. iDubbbz when he used to say that all the time, and we all did, am I right? On everyone's soul but mine. So that's pretty much what got this whole thing going. This audio clip is, I believe, 8, 9, 10 years old, and whether I like Fantano or not, that's not relevant. I just want to be consistent because literally a few days ago I made a video about PewDiePie and how people in a whole decade later they're still calling him a racist, a Nazi. Oh, he said the N-word 10 years ago. I think this whole situation is blown out of proportion. You're taking an audio clip from 10 years ago, and on top of that, it's not like he was talking to some black guy. He was like, well, you're a you know what, take that your own. Fantano made this video called Taking Accountability. It got like 13 million views.
Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest
Hello,
music
Anthony.
nerd, and in case you haven't noticed, I'm getting torn apart on Twitter, which is nothing new for me personally, but the discourse seems to have reached a fever pitch that's making a lot of people concerned and angry and even thinking I'm covertly a racist, bigoted person.
I don't think you're a racist. I do think you're an idiot for giving vultures a 1, for giving Yeezus a light 5. That's not his only crime. The real reason why he should be canceled for giving The Weeknd's House of Balloons a strong 3. How fucking dare you, sir? I don't care that you said the N-word, but this right here, your scores, this is where I draw the line, buddy. I don't care that you said the N-word. I don't care that you might or might not be a racist.
Yeah, and see, here's the thing. People aren't listening, right? His ultimate thrust of his argument is going to be, this is an old clip. It is unreasonable to hold a man accountable for saying something 10 years ago that he is addressed, that was taken out of context, that he's apologized for, etc., etc. But he's actually right here, and this is what people who don't care about race and the race issues, that especially the ones concerning black people and their plight, this is the thing that they don't really want to acknowledge. They don't care. They don't care about the N-word. They don't care at all. They don't have a problem with racism. Like, here he's literally saying, I don't have a problem. I don't care if you're racist. And then, unfortunately, young black people who are uneducated on the history of this country, who are, maybe even grew up in a high degree of privilege, grew up in the suburbs, who don't understand why racism is such a problem. They listen to this and they take on this mindset. Of course you don't care. You're not black. Let's continue.
Be canceled for your fucking scores.
I don't want to waste anyone's time, so let's just get straight into it. With Exhibit A, this clip right here, which has just been going absolutely viral, and here's my explanation for it. Early on in my YouTube career, I had some pretty lax views when it came to quoting the language of others, and my point of view was, what does it matter? It's not me saying it. I'm relaying a lyric or a sentiment or a point of view expressed by someone else. I'm even embarrassed to say that I don't think it was until like a few years ago that I actually changed and censored the text of this 2014 Death Grips review title. And as you can see in the comments of this video, there's even a lot of discourse and jokes flying around about me not saying the title. And at the time, this sort of thing left me feeling like this is more or less a moral gray area. I extended this attitude into other pieces of content I've made, like this one.
I do have a question though. How old is Fantano? Because we all know you develop empathy at 32, so maybe that's when it kicked in. Fantano age? Okay, yeah, seems about right. 40 years old. He started regretting this back when he was 32, 33. So it is confirmed, not only by iDubbbz, but Mr. Fantano here, that you gain empathy automatically the second you turn 32, 33. That seems like the age. That is why I don't care what kind of content I make right now. I don't care about what I say or do on YouTube, on Twitter, wherever the fuck. Because once I hit 32, that's when my empathy will kick in. And then I'll be able to look back at the content that I've made, the harmful, toxic, racist content that I've made, and be like, oh, so that was bad. Now let me pander to a new audience.
It is also clear
You see, but, and it's so funny, right? Because I'm 30, and no, I don't believe that necessarily you are like you're this this person completely lacks empathy until you hit your early 30s. But I can just speaking for myself, there is maturation that happens between you being a teenager and you turning 30. I think a lot of things go along with it, right? I'm a father of 3. I'm married. You know what I mean? Like, you've just been through more life. You've seen things. You've learned things. And if you pay attention, the adults around you, you would see the same thing. Is your mother and father the same person they are? Well, if you're only in your 20s or your teens, you haven't probably even seen it yet. But I can tell you, my mom and my dad, they're not the same person today in their late 40s and early 50s that they were when they were in their late 30s and early 30s, when I was a kid and a young teenager. Like, I've seen them grow and change positions and approach things differently. That's just called getting older. But this is a sign of immaturity, that you take the position that when someone does do that, and it results in them being more empathetic to a certain group of people that you still are immature and don't give a fuck about, you call it pandering. It is not pandering. It is just the result of maturing and getting older. It just is what it is. You have all of this immature, you have immaturity, you have learned bigotry that you probably inherited from your parents and your culture about various groups. Like, for instance, I grew up as a Jamaican in a very Christian culture. And so I grew up with a high degree of bigotry towards people in the gay community. You know, I don't have those feelings anymore. You know, do I still have more growing to do? And more, will I be even more empathetic as I get even older? Probably. But at the very least, I feel like I can confidently say that I am not in a place where, you know, I have bigoted views against these people. You know, I truly have a live and let live kind of approach with these people. And I don't moralize sexuality. I don't think they're sinners that are evil and are going to hell and going to, you know, and are the bane of society because, you know, 2 consenting adults happen to want to have a romantic relationship with each other. Are there still things about it that I don't really understand or struggle to relate to? Yes. But I'm truly just different where that's concerned. And that's because I've just gone through life, man. And so because you don't want to accept the possibility that you have growing to do in that department, you have to just say, there's no way I'm wrong. There's no way I have more things to learn where this is concerned. So therefore you're grifting, you're pandering, you're faking, you're lying. You know, all right, but we continue.
I'm quoting someone even in the tightly edited state this clip has been presented in. And the reason I'm doing so is to voice disagreement with calling people racial and homophobic slurs as a bit, which is what the original content creator I was quoting was doing. And he himself has since apologized for this whole era of his career. But I'm not getting deeper into the weeds than that because this video isn't about him. Because the fact of the matter is I should have and could have just censored myself while pointing this behavior out. But unfortunately, my position left me feeling kind of nonchalant because it's not the words themselves, but the sentiment of them that's being expressed that's truly disgusting.
Now, here's the thing, and once again, this goes back to anyone that said edgy stuff back in 2014 to 2017. It was a different time. I don't care if someone said this and they regret it years later. I mean, that's what growth is, right? It's like we've all done and said dumb shit that we regret, and it's how you recover or how you go about it that really shows whether you matured or you learn from that situation. I'm not gonna come on here and be all high and mighty and be like, Fantano should be canceled because he said the N-word, while quoting someone, by the way. And I find it hilarious that Fantano didn't even name drop him, because then iDubbbz would have been fucking crying, oh, Fantano called me out. I just have a feeling that if this was someone else that Fantano didn't like, Fantano would go all out to, I guess, discredit him, call him a racist, a right-winger. It's like, would Fantano be this charitable towards someone else? That's $1 million question. I don't think he would, but I could be wrong.
And that's the thing. That's something I have seen a lot of people say about Fantano, and that might be a legitimate criticism to have. If he is somebody who does not give the same level of, you know what I'm saying, grace to other people in regards to this kind of evolution, if there are examples of that, right? Somebody else being called out for clips that they said 10 years ago, and then he's like, oh, you're a piece of shit today. Even though that person is, you know, has the same views as Fantano today, then yeah, that'd be fucked up. But the reality is, I don't know if that's true. Do we have an actual example of somebody, like, for instance, is that Fantano's position on iDubbbz, that iDubbbz is insincere with the growth and changes that he has made over time? I doubt it. You know what I mean? What I can probably see is Fantano having that position about somebody like Hulk Hogan, for instance, right? Old clips come up, but the problem is we don't have any evidence that Hulk Hogan grew and changed and became a different person. He probably said sorry one time when all his life started to fall apart from the controversy. But Fantano has displayed consistently and for a period of time now that he is a different person with different views, and you know what I'm saying? He tries to encourage people to have what he believes are better ideas concerning these things. So that's something. But if it is the case that Fantano is a hypocrite where that's concerned, well, you know, that's fine to criticize him on that.
What do I know? I've never spoken to him. I don't know the guy. Can't review this Kanye album. It's so problematic. This and that. Put the reviews in the back, bro. We do not care about your political stance when it comes to Kanye. Or just tell us if the album is good, if you liked it or not. That's all we care about. I do think canceling someone for stuff they said in quotations 10 years ago and bringing it up in the Big 25, I think that is peak unemployment behavior. Like, how fucking bored are you?
I mean, this clip may be new to you, but it's actually almost 10 years old. If this was ever something I made a regular habit of doing, believe me, you'd be seeing more examples than this. All I can do is take ownership of having quoted these words in this way, and obviously say that I'm sorry, which I am in fact sorry about this.
Now, I hate that I'm doing this and I hate that I'm saying this, but Mr. Fantano, Mr. Melon actually beat the allegations. It will be extremely hypocritical of me to come on here and be like, yeah, we should cancel Fantano. Fantano is literally Hitler. And Fantano also did 9/11 because he's a liberal and he's a vegan. It would be extremely hypocritical if I just jumped on the Fantano hate train. So now there's this video that's going around. It has like 4 million views. Once again, another reason why they want Fantano to be canceled. And I think this is even worse. This is just 2015 humor being edgy. This is legitimately what the internet was like.
You see, this is the thing, and this is the thing with white creators and white people. They believe that unless you are actively like a full-blown neo-Nazi that is advocating for eugenics, that is actively advocating for the death and slaughter of all black people and people of color or, minorities or whatever, unless you're literally attending Klan rallies and unironically using the hard R at the dinner table, then you're not engaging. You're not engaging in racism. There is no racism there. And that's just not true. And it's ignorant. The big problem, though, with Anthony Fantano in these clips is that Anthony Fantano made a lot of money and gained a lot of fame off of black culture and the black community. And a lot of that support came with the assumption that Anthony was not racist, right? And Anthony did not take the black culture or black people for granted. And so that's where a lot of the outrage is coming from the black community. It's like, oh, we let you in the community, so to speak. We accepted you as someone who can speak on these matters, even though you're not a part of this culture, you're not a part of this community. The very least, don't be racist, right? Don't be cracking jokes about Trayvon Martin. Don't be saying the hard R. You know what I'm saying? That's understandable. It'll be like if you were made some kind of content that garnered a lot of eyes and viewership and fandom from, let's say, the gay community. They're probably assuming you're not saying the F word, jokingly. You're not, if a trans person was brutally murdered out of bigotry and hatred, there isn't a clip floating around about you joking about it. That's where the most of this outrage is coming from, or a lot of the outrage is coming from, when it is coming from the black community and the people who have a problem with these things. That's why. All right, so we continue.
They bring it to 2025 and they judge it with 2025 eyes, not with 2015 eyes. You know what I mean? This is just ridiculous. Like, out of everything you could call him out for, wow, there's more Anthony Fantano. 8 minutes more. He's done. LOL.
Real nibbas do stuff.
Who infamously called Ian a nigger. Harvey Weinstein, what's your opinion on Mike Dean producing the new Nick Gurr album? I'm not even a really big Nick Gurr guy. So
Jigglypuff is a social justice meme featuring a loud, obnoxious pig of a human being.
When was Fantano this based? We need this Fantano back.
See, again, this guy's like, this is good. This is good to be like this. He thinks this version of Anthony Fantano. So which is it? Is it a edgelord joking around like this shit is problematic and we're now in 2025 and people, we've grown past this? Or is this what you still wish the internet was? He cultivated that audience. He encouraged that kind of behavior online. He can face his own consequences with people who take it way too serious. Again, this is assuming that it's his own fan base that is turning on him. That is the majority of the criticism that is coming. And I'm sure some portion of his regular viewers are turning on him and having a problem with that. But I don't think that's where the majority of the outrage is coming from. I'm not an advocate for making people apologize for stuff they did like 5 years ago, but I let it slide this time because I heavily dislike Fantano. That's where a lot of the outrage is coming from. It's people who just don't like him. A lot of those people they don't like him for these views that he has, these progressive views that he has. Nope, he said the no word 11 years ago. What does that mean? This person completely does not give a fuck about the N-word. They think that it doesn't matter. They don't understand. And it's not, maybe they do understand. They don't give a fuck about black people and the black plight and the black struggle. That's the big thing here. These people do not care about black people at all. They don't care about the wealth gap. They don't care about the reason the wealth gap exists is because of slavery, white supremacy, and the history of racism in this country. You have a country here where the majority of the wealth is held by the white population, which have been completely free in this country for, you know, about 400 plus years, right? Since the early 1600s, white people have been planting roots here, completely untethered by any kind of oppressive laws against them because of their whiteness, right? If you were smart and willing to work hard, you could move up as a white person. If you can afford to go to the school, you could go to the school, right? You could work in any industry. Black people did not achieve or receive that level of freedom until the 1960s, which was only about, what was that? That was only about 60 years ago, right? About 60 years ago. And so you're comparing a group that is the grand majority that has had no oppression essentially for, 400 plus years, to a group that is the minority, a significant minority that has only been unrestricted by just the law. We're not saying racism just disappeared in the 1960s either, but at least racism that was upheld by the actual fucking US government and the law, that was only 60 years ago, right? That is a large portion of the reason, that has a big portion of the responsibility for the wealth gap and all the various other discrepancies you see between the black community and the white community. And people don't want to acknowledge that. People want to believe that the reason they're successful, and as compared to the black kid who ends up in prison or ends up hooked on drugs or who just ends up living their entire life being poor, is the only difference is you were willing to work hard and that kid wasn't. They don't want to acknowledge that if they had to swap parents at birth, that would be them and they would be you. Maybe they would even be more successful than you. You want to attribute your success completely to your own agency. People don't like acknowledging that they're the result of privilege. And they don't like that for themselves as individuals, and they also hate it for the societal thing. There are white people who like to believe the reason that the white population in America is so much more ahead than the black population boils down mainly to the fact that in some way white people are just better. White culture is just better. White culture is just superior. That is white supremacy. The idea that white people are superior. They don't want to believe that if you literally switch everything, make black people the colonizers, make black people the slave owners in the early 1600s and the white people the enslaved, and put them through the exact same historical paths, that things would have ended up more or less the same, just roles reversed. They don't want to believe that it would be them killing and, robbing and selling drugs and having this, counterculture culture that is mainly rooted in entertainment. They want to believe that, no, you fast forward the hands of time, you would have ended up with white people being on top, being the highest educated, having all the wealth, and the black people being where they are today, collectively as a society. That's what they want to believe, but it's not true at all. Okay, all right, now let's go to the black people who are speaking on this situation. Let's go there. All right, so I watched Ohmeezy's video on it, and Ohmeezy more or less takes the position Anthony fucked up then, and he should still be held accountable to some degree today for the things he fucked up with in the past, and it may actually be reflective of who he is today. And though I believe that is a possibility, I don't think that's closer to the truth than not. I do think that Anthony more than likely has grown a lot as a person, as an individual, and he genuinely regrets those, those positions that he held in the past. So I think Meezy, and maybe Meezy just doesn't like Anthony. There could be many reasons why he takes his position. But let's take a look at his comments. Right? Everyone's getting exposed this year. When the internet personality you hate because you find them annoyingly finally has a valid reason to hate them. Again, so you're seeing some of the same kind of motivations to hate them coming from these people, the people who are more in tap or in tune with the black society. It is not that deep. Comments in here remind me of black K-pop stans that draw the line at braids but relentlessly defend their fave saying the N-word. Yeah, it's not that deep. This is a coon defense mechanism. This is a white apologist posture that you do see a lot of black people taking. They rather not offend white people. They rather want to look at their white friends, their white coworkers, their white peers, just the other white people in society and say, hey, I don't think it's a big deal. I'm still cool with you. You still cool with me, right? Than to empathize with their, black peers, more than likely because they don't really relate to their black peers, to the hurt that they might be feeling in regards to seeing a white person who has built their success in large part off of the black community and hip hop and black culture. That is a justifiable reason to be upset with a guy. They don't want to empathize with them. They don't want to side with them. They don't really care. They don't see these people as people that they can really get anything from anyway. They see the white people and being cool with white people as more advantageous. And so they rather be a white apologist or just a full-blown coon than to acknowledge the very real issues at hand here. All right, so it is that deep. It is that deep. You shouldn't be saying these things even in a quote is crazy. Yeah, another position that Meezy had in this video, and I'm only kind of summarizing now just because I've actually already watched these videos, and this video is getting pretty long-winded. Feel free to watch their videos in entirety. I promise you, I assure you, I'm not taking anything out of context or misrepresenting it, but watch the whole thing if you'd like. At some point in the video, Meezy says that the instance of him quoting iDubbbz, even that in of itself is, is problematic and unacceptable. And I see both sides of the argument. I do think it's extreme. It's wrong-headed to attribute genuine internal racism to a person who is quoting like Huckleberry Finn, right? Or who is quoting somebody else saying something racist. I think that is just taking censorship to too far a place. And if that were the only clip of Anthony, I don't even think this is a conversation worth having, but it's not. It's not the only clip. Yeah, FD Signifier going to be crushed. So I guess FD Signifier, who is a very famous, outspoken, progressive, pro-black YouTuber, apparently has a good relationship with Anthony, and they have a lot of similar views, and they speak to a lot of similar things in regards to the various progressive topics. And people are assuming that FD Signifier is going to look at Anthony differently now. I doubt that is going to be the case, especially if they have a real friendship. I think Anthony's a different person than he was 10 years ago. I think he really believes the same thing. I actually believe that there are very few grifters on the internet. If we're going to define grifter as people who are promoting things that they don't actually believe. If that's the way we're defining grifter, I think most people, if they're saying something over and over again, they actually believe it. And you could make the argument that maybe initially they didn't believe it that much or didn't care that much. But with time, I do believe that if you see somebody saying something over and over again consistently for a long period of time, that's something they actually believe. I don't think Anthony behind closed doors is, you know, he's a right-wing, alt-right conservative, but puts on the... Why? Because you could just do that. You could just do that online. This is an illusion. This is all pretend, and both sides kind of do this, unfortunately. This idea that the other side is the more profitable side. You listen to conservatives, and they will have you believe that being a liberal is more profitable. It's more profitable to go woke. And so that's why Asmongold makes millions of dollars a month, making incredibly low effort reaction videos, regurgitating all the conservative talking points. It's incredibly low effort. Fox News historically has been more profitable than CNN and MSNBC within the last 10 years. This is a lie that they like to pretend that, oh, the reason people do this and take these positions because they want to be more popular and make more money. Fox News has both pulls more viewers than these liberal sites and makes more money. And the same is true for a lot of the political commentators. In fact, the top 10 political YouTube channels and streamers in terms of performance and viewership, I'm sure the majority of them are conservative. But the other side does the same thing as well. You know, liberals pretending that being conservative is also just like a grift, that people don't really believe these things and they're only doing it because of those easy views and easy money. The truth is, there are a lot of people who believe both sides of the fence, right? There are a lot of people who are on the left and a lot of people on the right. And there's a large audience. And if you're good at what you do and you're good at articulating the viewpoints of your team, then you have a good chance of growing a large audience and making a lot of money. There is no better side to be a part of, which is why all the reason more why I don't believe most of the people who are saying the things they're saying are lying or pretending or grifting, because you could make just as much money, if not more money, having the opposite position, if that was truly your position. Right? Anthony could be raking in, or the conservative right-wing dollars, if he so chose. White people listen to music too. Conservatives listen to music too. And it's not like there aren't conservatives who like hip hop music. So this idea that the only reason Anthony has these left-wing views is because he talks about hip hop and a lot of black people are on the left is bullshit. Right? You could easily still rake in the money being a right-wing conservative. Okay, so there's that. Now, there was one more guy I wanted to see, Anthony Fantano.
Of others. And my point of view was, what does it matter? It's not me saying it. I'm relaying a lyric or a sentiment or a point of view expressed by someone else. I'm even embarrassed to say that I don't think it was until like a few years ago that I actually changed and censored the text of this 2014 Death Grips review title. And as you can see in the comments of this video, there's even a lot of discourse and jokes flying around about me not saying the title. And at the time, this sort of thing left me feeling like this is more or less a moral gray area. I extended this attitude into other pieces of content I've made, like this one, where it is also clear I am quoting someone, even in the tightly edited state this clip has been presented.
Point is, though, like I said, that's still not a real defense to what he's saying, though. You can say that, oh yeah, I was just quoting somebody, but you still knew what you were saying. You still knew how that would sound to the masses. Because getting on this clip, dropping the N-bomb, then turn around, you know, you trying to be a part of hip hop, that's a crazy look.
And the reason I'm doing so is to voice disagreement with calling people racial and homophobic slurs as a bit, which is what the original content creator I was quoting was doing. And he himself has since apologized for this whole era of his career. But I'm not getting deeper into the weeds than that, because this video isn't about him. Because the fact of the matter is, I should have and could have just censored myself while pointing this behavior out. But unfortunately, my position left me feeling kind of nonchalant, because it's not the words themselves, but the sentiment of them that's being expressed that's truly disgusting. And sure, while that is true on some level, explicitly quoting him was in bad form and just unnecessary. I would have still gotten my point across and done so without upsetting anybody had I taken that approach.
At least he's taking accountability for what he's saying, though. Yeah, this is a terrible look, But with the context, is it as bad as the narrative that they are pushing on Twitter? That's what I'm saying. It's kind of a hard question to answer because, like, he wasn't necessarily disrespecting black folk, like I said, but at the same time, he was. At the same time, he's saying these words, knowing the weight that's behind it, but it's just excusing it as, oh, I was reading.
Notice the white people, oh, it's a no-no word. That's, you know, it's a big bad no-no word that shouldn't be a big deal. And then you have black people who are saying this is a big deal. This word carries a lot of weight. And it all comes down to the fact that you're white and they're black. You can't relate. You benefit from white supremacy. You benefit from white privilege. That's a reality. We don't. And then, of course, you got the blacks who are coons and white apologists. And that's a thing as well. But I do think they make up probably a growing, but a minority, but a growing minority. A minority of the black community.
Something, or I was quoting something.
I feel this way now because of an important realization I only made after tons and tons of people were watching me, that I don't make content just for me, I do it for an audience. And I can't dictate what anyone watching may or may not find harmful or offensive. No more than with a review, I can dictate what music you do or don't like. So I would rather err on the side of caution and not hurt anyone by explicitly voicing language that doesn't exist in a vacuum, even if I am quoting it. And that's actually been my approach for a very long time now. I mean, this clip may be new to you, but it's actually almost 10 years old. If this was ever something I made a regular habit of doing, believe me, you'd be seeing more examples than this. All I can do is take ownership of having quoted these words in this way, and obviously say that I'm sorry, which I am in fact sorry about this. Now, there are going to be some people watching this video who will say, no, that's not enough. I know you're a racist. I saw a clip of you laughing at Trayvon Martin's death,
now,
which I guess this is the clip.
This is what I was talking about. Now, this clip that Academics TV was pushing and all these Twitter accounts was pushing was edited and taken out of context. In this clip, he was talking to some weird niggas, and the dude he was talking to said something real crazy. They was talking about Trayvon Martin. Super chat had got sent and it had text-to-speech. The text-to-speach read it out loud. One of the dudes he was on stream with was like, F Trayvon Martin, and he was like, oh my bad, I didn't mean to say that. Some real weird energy getting pushed out by these niggas that Fantano was making content with. And in the clip, he does say, oh, you're dumb for saying that. He's like, oh, you shouldn't have said that. But still, you're on their platform. You're giving them a piece of your platform. Technically, nigga, you on stream with them. You right there.
Vegan invited me to an event that taught me about PETA's buying guide / neoliberal whiteness and Trayvon Martin. Okay.
Dude, fucking Trayvon. I was thinking Trey Melvin. I had a big thing with Trey Melvin.
Which I will agree, that doesn't look good. But believe it or not, the way this clip has been presented is a lie, and it's been heavily edited too.
See, this is what I'm saying. The clip did sound bad. When you hear him play the unedited part, you're gonna be like, okay. But still, this clip is a bad look.
The clip has been presented is a lie, and it's been heavily edited too. First off, I gotta say, the Drunken Peasants podcast where I was appearing in that clip is explicitly not a right-wing podcast. While, yeah, it's true the show has featured a pretty wild range of guests over the years, and the humor tends to run a bit edgy, they also regularly make fun of right-wingers, alt-right psychopaths, and the president. And in this clip that you just saw, I'm reading a super chat that is on the screen that was sent in by a viewer of the show. And the reason I'm jumping into reading it is that partially it is a dig at me, because on the show it's not exactly a secret that I'm an openly liberal vegan. And from there, here is what actually happens.
A vegan invited me to an event that taught me about PETA's buying guide / neoliberal whiteness and Trayvon Martin. Okay.
Dude, fucking Trayvon. I was gonna. I was gonna say Trey Melvin, but it's no Trayvon Martin.
Man, you're so. You know what, Jeff? You're so right wing.
As you can see there, that is not the clip that is getting passed around. In this original clip, Jeff Holiday there on the podcast doesn't even finish his sentence. He apparently gets Trayvon Martin mixed up with someone else entirely, and I even call him a moron. Because that is obviously something moron would communicate. So voila, that's actually what happened in that clip. With all that being said,
yeah, to me it clearly seems like an example of a Freudian slip, right? He meant to say someone else, and then there's this clip afterwards where the guy, who I think is jokingly saying, you're like, oh, it's all these black names, they're all the same or whatever. And shit, I mean, I think that's a racist joke. Racist in the sense it's a racially charged joke, but I don't think it's a harmful joke. I think that is a joke that in a vacuum, a black person most black people wouldn't be offended about. I think most black people will acknowledge that, you know, in the black community, we do have a lot of very unique names that sound similar, you know, like Chantel, Shaquelle, Shanice, Shaniqua, Shanisha. You know what I'm saying? That, like, these are unique sounded names compared to conventional, more European names, but they're similar. And so you could see how somebody, especially someone not really from the culture, could easily Shanisha, Shaniqua, like, oh, these names are all the same. I think if you're getting offended by that as a black person, I think that is an instance of you looking for something to not like someone over or to get offended over. You know, and we can do the same thing for any race and any culture with their own things that are kind of like that. Every race kind of has their own version of that, right? That I feel like you probably would have no problem joking about, and not whilst not being racist. But in the context of the whole situation, I see how that clip, especially once it's edited, is making Anthony look bad. But if we're just looking at that clip for what it is, I don't think that is evidence. I think there are other things here, right? Like that tweet that we looked at earlier where, you know what I'm saying, Anthony said that he was laughing. Here, 2013, I laughed at this for 30 minutes. Somebody saying Trayvonin, you know, he has his Arizona iced tea, I think it is, in a bag of Skittles, which Trayvon Martin famously died with the only things in his possession while a white supremacist hunted him down and killed him, saying that he was armed when all he had was a bag of Skittles. It was an incredibly terrible thing. So anybody who wants to take the position that Anthony never did anything problematic or said anything problematic, and that everything has a justifiable reason that you can rationalize, I think is also misrepresenting it. I think what we see here is a mixture of immaturity, bad programming, and maybe even some amount of racism, right? Not even maybe, definitely some, but like it's a kind of racism where I don't think they actively hate black people or want black people to be injured in any kind of way, but they are incredibly insensitive to the black struggle and the black plight. They make light of black pain and black trauma that is a result of their ancestry and heritage, especially in this country. That, I believe, is something that infects a lot of Americans, especially white people and non-black people, but even to a great extent, black people. And that's what results in the no word, not a big deal. People are making a big deal. It's not that deep. That's what that's a function of. You know, it's a thing, man. You're going to see black people in the comment section down below that are like that. You know, a lot of these, especially if they're immigrants or with an immigrant background, because immigrants are far removed. They don't have Jim Crow. That's not in their ancestry. They come from a majority black country a lot of times. So they can't relate until it's convenient. You know, and they just need to read a few history books on Black American history, and that I think will cure a lot of that. That's why I'm the way I am today, bro. It's where we are as a society. That's why I speak about these things. I'm trying to do my part to educate people and influence people. I think knowledge is power, and there are a lot of black people walking around with an inferiority complex that is attached to this white apologetic coon type behavior and mindset. And I do believe that talking about this stuff, educating people on this stuff will liberate them. I speak about this thing primarily for two reasons: to liberate you from your black inferiority complex that has been embedded in you by white supremacy, and to help you to better empathize with your fellow black person in America if you live in America. But yeah, guys, you let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. That's the Anthony Fantano situation, man. It's insane.